And we back, and we back. Yeah. Hey, this ain't no intro.
This is the intro.
Yeah, this is the intro.
This is the intro.
It's the entree. Hit that intro with Kanye. I sound like Andre. Tryna turn my baby mama to my fiance. She like music, she from Houston, like Auntie Beyonce. Man, my daughter couldn't have a better mother if she ever.
What's I'm keeping that? What's going on, family? Welcome back.
Welcome back to another episode.
I'm going to try and push out 2 episodes this weekend since we have unintentionally become a bi-weekly show. But thank you for being here. Thank you for the support. Thank you for listening. So this has been a long time coming. We've been meaning to do this episode for ages, and now we're finally doing it. And I think in the right tone, because I was just going through some information on climate change, and those videos were pretty scary, yeah?
Yeah, so we were just doing a little research on climate change and
to put together a good episode. And this episode is super easy for me because, like I've said in other instances, I'm already a little bit of a hippie. Like, the first thing I ever taught you about was Earthships.
Yeah.
Earthships.
I was like, what the hell are Earthships?
Exactly. But in one of the first rants you ever heard me make was about deforestation. Like, you know what I mean? So this is very much who I am. Like, sustainable living has always been a passion of mine. One of our life goals and dreams eventually is to have our own farm on our own land and all of those things. So these are all things that are important to me.
So if you're wondering what an Earthship is at home,
well, we'll
cover it at the end,
but that's why this is important to me. But the reason that we're doing this is because this is important to us as a people,
as a community.
As a community, we want to break this down and make it more understandable and more relatable, so that it's not just some hippie shit, right? Because something that I'm very passionate about also is I do not believe in putting myself at the mercy of others. That extends to me, that extends to our family, that extends to our community, right? When you're at the mercy of someone else, and this has been the heart of a lot of our government talks.
Yeah.
When you're at the mercy of someone else, you can't be like, well, you were supposed, motherfucker, you get what you got, because that's what I gave you, and that's what I was willing to give you, and that's what you accept. The more we take care of us and take care of ourselves, the less we have to fight other people about what they haven't done and aren't doing for us. And climate change is kind of like at the heart of that discussion.
Yeah. That's a key point for Pacifica
climate
change.
So, I guess the first place that we want to start off is, why does climate change matter to us? I guess, so, no, even before that basic level, just in case anybody doesn't know, what is climate change? So let's start with that, yeah? Okay, so something that a lot of people, which is surprising, don't believe in is global warming. And that's where climate change comes from, right? Which is basically the theory that the things that we're doing, the burning of fossil fuels, the making of cars and industry and all the toxic waste, makes the planet warmer.
Yeah.
Which melts the ice caps. Which changes
causes sea levels to rise.
And it all contributes to the weather and changes the climate of the planet. Like, rain comes from evaporation of the water that we have. The ice caps used to make up a large amount of the water in solid form. If they're liquid, there's more water, there's more rain, the ocean's levels, they rise, the water goes different places.
There's a lot of irregularity.
There is. The weather shifts and
that in part also affects agriculture. And
it affects agriculture in a major way. Go ahead.
Yeah, that in part affects agriculture, and we're starting to see it in the Pacific Islands, where a lot of our people, when they go out to fish, they're finding that a lot of the fish, like, there's not as much
fish because they can't live in the temperature that the water is now, so they've changed location. Or even our taro farmers. If it used to rain every other day, but now it rains once a month, or it rains you can't grow crops.
Exactly. So the seasons that they once could count on, like, they knew
there is no consistency.
They don't know what's around the corner now, whether it's going to be like a long stretch of rain or if it's going to be drought or.
And so the first way that this hits us is if we can't even grow food, or we don't have sustainable food from the places that we used to gather it, that makes us more dependent on artificialized food and things like that. Like, we can't even feed ourselves.
Yeah, it directly affects our livelihoods.
It does, and it also eliminates revenue from the islands, because we don't just feed ourselves with a lot of the farming and the fishing. We sell to other places. So if we're losing the ability to feed ourselves and provide for ourselves, that hits us there. But part of the reason that I wanted to start off with how this affects us is because I can say arguably no community is affected in greater capacity by climate change than us as Pacifica people. We are hit the hardest and the first.
Yeah, well, not just us.
Well, everybody. This affects everybody.
No, but I also, like, am mindful of, like, other little islands, like, in the Caribbean and stuff like that.
Yeah, they just had another superstorm that flooded. Listen, so even before Bermuda, right, in this most recent one, there was another one in the States that just hit, like, St. Thomas or St. Martin and destroyed those islands. Now, Bermuda has just been hit by another massive superstorm that has displaced almost their entire island. I mean, population-wise, like, wasn't there something like 140 deaths? Which doesn't seem like a big deal.
Yeah, but
until there's like fucking 3,000 people on your island.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
And that's what the thing is, because I remember thinking, like, oh, this is very similar to the Pacific Islands. Is this because
they're islanders too? They're just a different type of islander. So So this affects all islanders.
But she was saying, you know, our islands aren't just holiday points for you white people. Like, we live here, our livelihoods are here, we raise our families here. It's not just like nice beaches for you to come holiday at. This needs to be a priority for you too.
And the reason this is rough for the diaspora is because if you're from the islands, it hits harder, right? If you have family in the islands, it hits harder.
Yeah.
But as you get that separation of your kids have never been to the islands, or your family is all of these people that you've never met and you don't know, but you send stuff to, like, and your home is Australia, your home is America, there's a detachment. Because there's this feeling of, well, this doesn't really affect me.
Yeah.
You know? And assimilation makes that even more rough. Because we see it in our community now. You have a lot of people that are Pacifica second. To them, they're American first.
Yeah.
Or they're Australian first.
Well, you even see in the way that they, like, kind of like I'm a New Zealand Pacifica. The New Zealand part comes first for a lot of people.
Right.
Or I'm an Australian Polynesian. The Australian part comes
so
first
the diaspora makes it even rougher because there's more separation and less understanding of the importance. But this hits us everywhere we live, even the diaspora, because where do we live? In the States? Florida, California. We live in coastal places. Even if we're not on the islands anymore, we hit the coastal cities the most. And the coastal cities and the rising tides are the ones that are going to be affected by climate change first. And I say this as a person who lived through Superstorm Sandy. And that shit was real. That tore New York the fuck apart. And people didn't even really think New York could be hit like that. The storm was so strong. You've been to the waterfront. You've been to the waterfront in Jersey City. You've been to the waterfront in New York. Like, all of that is new builds because the storm was so strong, it ripped the pier out of the water.
Yeah, how long ago was Superstorm? It was in 2012.
Yeah.
It's now 2019, and they're still making repairs because of Superstorm Sandy.
And we're having storms like that multiple times a year now. Okay? I remember it was so real that there were power outages across the city. And because my sister and I lived in a place, like a good income area, we still had power. But 5 blocks away, people didn't have power. And they were driving cars through storefronts to steal ATM machines.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, shit was crazy to the point where I had to tell my sister, you can't have your room light on. Because if other people understand that we have power and they don't have power, shit can get very real. And I'll kill a motherfucker at the door.
Oh my goodness. Like,
I'm not playing. That's like, you think I'm gonna let somebody come in our home and hurt us over power? That shit is. And here's this. Sorry, but like, we had a gas stove, so we were fine. But so many people here, the standard in New Zealand is electric stove. You know how fucking real we would be hit by a power outage on that scale because of storms?
Yeah.
Like, this affects us in a very serious way, especially as coastal city livers. And
one thing that I wanted to point out is, some of our islands, because I was just reading before that, for Tokelau, they're like, people are already starting to move inland because of the erosion and like rising sea levels and stuff. But for Tokelau, what I found crazy was that the highest point on their island is only 5 meters above sea level.
Tokelau, Tuvalu.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many. So, the first way, just to reiterate and go back a little bit, climate change, what we're talking about, is just basically mass effects in the weather changing the world, right? The way it's hitting us first is our inability to grow food and get food. But then the main thing the main way it's hitting us is our islands are sinking. And they're sinking in a very serious way. Most of our islands are not Hawaii. Hawaii has active volcanoes. And so new land is already being formed and stuff like that. But even then, it takes thousands of years to be livable and growable, right? But Hawaii...
And it's not like these volcanoes are like exploding every year to make like new...
Right.
They're like...
And so that's not something that we can count on. And even then... the storms are fucking us up. Storms are tearing Hawaii apart. Just like they are in the Caribbean and the Bahamas and Bermuda and all of that shit. We're being hit by them. And it's very scary to actively live in and be in a hurricane. That shit, and again, this is another prime example of something this is affecting is migration. So as our islands become less livable and less safe and they sink, we have to flee to other countries.
We are literally becoming the first environmental refugees. Climate change refugees.
And we can adapt to places, we can build homes in places and find new environments, but that doesn't make these new places our home or where we come from. And that brings us back to the initial point of when that happens, this puts our people and our communities and our families at the mercy of these governments and these people there. And listen, we have different views on this, but you can look anywhere in the world, in every country in the world. Do people really fuck with refugees?
No. Well, there's like a stigma around, like...
to a point. They're going to give you but so much. And listen, refugees are a very rough topic because there's a lot of natural hate towards them, towards something that I talk about all the time. When our people are homeless and our people don't have food and don't have jobs and they see refugees getting aid and assistance from the government, they get angry. Yeah. And refugees become a focal point for shit that they're not even responsible for. Okay?
They become the scapegoats for a lot of...
And they experience a lot of hate and violence and lots of fucked up shit. And that is the position that we are moving in as a people.
Oh, we get as Pacific Islanders that migrate, not even as refugees. We just migrate to other places to live.
We get so much of that shit now. The dawn raids, dog, like that shit is so. But this,
it's the byproduct of being brown. Sadly,
right? But the thing about that is, there's a choice now. A lot of people don't want to go back, and if they weren't born there, there's not somewhere. And there are people that do, but even if you never want to go back to your island, you have the choice.
Yeah. You know what's funny is that just as I said, it's the byproduct of being brown. I literally I remember something about environmental racism, and that's literally what's going on right now. Do you know how quickly things would be solved
if it was affecting white people?
If these islands were white islands that lived there, and and how many it's just mind blowing that.
So we have to care about this because this is moving us into a position of vulnerability and a lack of safety on a lot of levels, and it's putting us at the mercy of others, right?
But sadly, that's the position we're in.
I know,
because we're such small islands.
But this is why we have these conversations, because we need. If anybody needs community cohesion and unity, it's us. It's fucking us. Because all we have is each other, and we are constantly at each other's fucking throats. Micronesians, Polynesians,
Yeah, but at the center of it, it's all love. I feel like sort of, I don't know. But what was I gonna say?
Sorry to cut you off. I apologize. Go ahead.
Yeah, we are literally at the mercy of a lot of the big power countries that
superpowers, like the politician in Australia who was like, "Oh, there'll always be a future for Pacifica because they do our farming." And this is yes, baby, you disagree with that too? That's right, mama. You tell them. But this was the conversation. They were talking about climate change, and he was like, the Pacific Islanders do our farming. There'll always be a future for them here.
Yeah, they pick our fruits and stuff. Yeah. Racism, again.
Yeah, that's Australia.
But these countries like the US, like China, like Australia, that have mass carbon emissions.
And that takes us to the next part. So we've already talked about what it is, but when we have to talk about who's responsible. Right?
And it's really hard because you don't want to blame.
No, fuck that. We'll blame. We're gonna point all the motherfucking fingers, right? Because what these major corporations and these companies and these lobbyists do is they create these ad campaigns that make you feel like poor people are responsible because they use plastic straws or because they don't recycle, and that's a part of it. But it's the 1% part of it. The major people responsible for climate change
are corporations, industries, and rich people.
Superpowers, as in China, America, the UK, nations that are mass producers. And so let's break it down.
Yes,
so first, the biggest people responsible are superpowers, major nations. So America, China, right? The UK, and to some extent, a smaller extent, places like Australia, things like that, right? But it's the big countries. How is it the big countries? Because these big countries are home to the corporations and the companies that do a lot of the production, the farming,
that have fossil fuel,
the waste making, things like that, right? The natural gas companies, like the fossil fuel companies and things like that do the illegal mining and the farming and dumping and all of that shit. These are all of the contributors. And the ones that hit us the most are the fishing companies. Because 90% of the waste in the ocean is from commercial fishers.
Yeah.
And so that's just to give us who's responsible. But going from there. So are there things...
But yes, I still hold that rich people...
Yes, because they benefit from... A lot of them are the owners of the companies, or they benefit from the systems and they interact and well, fuck it. I really had a good time on this island when we were flying over. Let's build a resort.
On my plane with my one person on there. You know how many... That freaking Greta, what's her name? Greta. The little white girl, and
who's fighting.
Yeah, I think her name is Greta. She sailed to get to another country because she refuses to be on airplanes that...
So if you don't know who we're talking about, this is a young girl. I think she's of Slavic descent, but anyway, she was just recently on Trevor Noah's show, And so you can find her on YouTube. She's also on Vice on YouTube.
But she's a big activist.
She's a very active activist and a major proponent to climate change. And Trevor Noah said to her, "Why are you so passionate about this?" And her answer was something that affects a lot of our community and a lot of our families. And she said, "We can't count on your generation to care about it, because most of you think I'm not going to be alive when this hits, so why is it a big deal?" She said, "But for us, this is in our face, because not only is it affecting us right now, this is our future that's changing in front of us."
Yeah.
We are on the borderline of that point, generationally, us. But we have to care about that. It's a privilege to not give a fuck about this.
Exactly.
And it's a privilege that we don't have.
Especially as Pacifica people.
Especially. But again, I think, not to slam it, but I think the diaspora definitely affects that. Because if you've been in America your whole life, you know what I mean? And all you know is major cities and your food is always at the supermarket and this shit don't really hit you like,
yeah.
Fuck you and talk to me about some climate change for? Like, this is so nuts to me. Like, our islands are fucking sinking. Our people are displaced all over. And we got fucking Islander Crips and Bloods. And like, it might seem like it's like, why does this affect this? Like, what do you even... Nigga, like, you Crippin'? In South Auckland, nigga, and your island sinking? Like, you... One thing directly affects you. The other is a million miles away. Like, how did this shit become more important? You know what I mean? Like, your set is more important than... Like, nigga, your grandma's house is underwater, dog. Like, what are we talking about? And not even like to slander anybody, but that's, for me, that's perspective, because this conversation isn't real to a lot of people because I need work right now. That's what's real to me.
Yeah.
Or the club is taking care of my family. That's what's real to me. But this affects those things as well. And so
these two can, like, multitasking with your priorities.
But I don't even think it's multitasking, because I don't think they're separate issues.
Yeah, that is true.
Us being displaced by climate change creates more of these situations. Because something I used to talk to my students about is, where did gangs come from? Why are gangs important? Because they were angry at members of their family that belong to gangs. And they're like, you have a family, what do you need the gang for? But if your family is dependent on the government, and your family can't even protect themselves, and you feel weak and at the mercy of people, you have people that don't want to stay in that situation. And so the reason gangs even became necessary is because we had people that needed protection from the cops and protection from other people. And that takes me back to the heart of what I started at with this. This leads us into a situation that will continue to put us at the mercy of other people in other countries and other communities if we don't care about this and look at ways to combat this. And even if we get to a point where migration is strictly a necessity, we need to be migrating into areas where we've said, okay, look, we're going to buy businesses, we're going to own homes, we are going to build big, healthy, strong communities for ourselves, so that we don't experience people, we don't want you in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck are you doing here, taking up all the jobs? Look at all the places that we've both lived.
And I think that moves into, like, some things that we can do is putting ourselves in better financial positions to be able to, like, be able to help and make, or not even just financial positions, but, like, government positions where we can make decisions.
Right. That's the next part of this, and that's a great segue, Mama. Thank you. So how we've already talked about how this is affecting our future and how it will. What can we do about it now? Like, all this is an issue. This is real. I get it. Dope. Okay. What the fuck can we do? So the first thing is something that we constantly talk about: more active in the government as a people. Even if it's not running for office or holding positions of office, your vote matters.
Exactly.
Lobby. Are the people you're putting in power in our cities, in our countries, concerned about this? Do they give a fuck about our islands? What steps are they taking to ensure that our people are looked after.
Yeah, and these are questions that you need to ask. Like, email them, turn up to their forums that they have,
Mama,
and ask these questions. Are Pacifica people,
how
are their
often
islands
do I hit up politicians?
Yeah. He'd be emailing them
Listen,
all the freaking time.
I stay in a fucking political inbox, okay? You know how people are always like, oh, I'm a black woman inside. You know, I'm flexing my inner black woman. Fuck that. I flex my inner white woman. I write letters. I make phone calls. I be in a mother. Wait, you're my... I don't give a fuck. This is not your district? Get in touch with who's in my district. Okay? Listen, we were in a real rough spot one time, and the lady was like, oh, well, this only happens, and you've just missed this deadline. And I was like, okay, listen, I understand that. I appreciate your help. Who do I need to talk to get this fixed? Is there someone else I can call? And she was like, I'll take care of it. We have the power and the ability to affect change in our communities, even if we don't hold these positions.
Do you know how many Pacific Islanders are in New Zealand? I think 200,000 plus, more than 200,000. So if we all collectively...
These are publicly held positions that change when we put these people in or take them out of office. They have a responsibility to us, and we have a responsibility to make sure that our community is being looked after by the people that we have appointed to do that. And if those people are not living up to that responsibility, then we have the opportunity to replace them with others who are, or do that for ourselves. And holding the government accountable, no matter what country you live in, is one of the main and first ways to really affect climate change, to make sure that our politicians are holding these companies and corporations to task.
Facts, right? Because it's because my next point was going to be grassroots movements and everything. Those are good. Those are really good to spread awareness. But when it comes to something as drastic as climate change,
it doesn't have the same impact.
It doesn't. What really needs to be done is these big companies, these big countries, I feel like they ultimately have the biggest
responsibility.
Exactly.
And they need the most regulation.
Exactly.
And they need the most, Donald Trump fucked America, and America fucked everybody else because the Paris Agreement was going to help a lot of this and move it in the right direction. And Obama fought for it for a long time. And Donald Trump got in office and said, fuck all that climate change shit. Mm-hmm. And pulled out of the Paris Agreement. And then he filled his cabinet and his lobby in his house with key members of the fossil fuel industry. And they started repealing and peeling back a lot of the climate change stuff. And we have reached a point where we talked about it last episode. Where in the last episode, it was 6 months. We have 4 to 5 months to permanently change what we are doing to affect the climate, or we won't be able to.
Yeah.
We have more time to get my citizenship than we do to make a fucking impact on climate change. You know how crazy that is?
But there are grassroots movements out there that are doing really big things. I guess they're not so much grassroots movements anymore because they've become bigger, really big players in the Pacific. So Have Your Say is one, and if you guys look them up, you can sign their Pacifica Warrior Declaration that they have, and sign their declaration. So essentially what their declaration proposes is pretty much the end of the era of fossil fuels and moving to 100% renewable energy, supporting the immediate delivery of finances needed for countries already facing irreversible loss and damage, so the Pacific Islands. And they want to kick big polluters out of the climate talks, which America's already gone, but anyway. So, and they want to limit warming to 1.5 degrees.
And so, again, what we're discussing now is people who are making an active effort to combat climate change now, because they understand how fast the clock is ticking, and them having real solutions to what we can do about this. If you guys want more information about this, like say you have a really short attention span, I mean, I guess it's decent because a lot of people are listening to our full episodes. But like, if you have a short attention span and you want to find out what's going on, Vice has an entire series on climate change. Each of the videos is 3 to 4 minutes long. They give you a ton of information and really help you understand what's going on. If you want to see some of the ways that this affects us and how the fallout can be affected, something that I talk about all the time that I show my wife is a movie called When the Levees Broke.
Yeah.
And it's a Spike Lee movie about what happened to New Orleans when when Hurricane Katrina hit them and the flood walls broke down.
We be having a lot of debates about this movie.
And how it hit their city. Well, why do we have debates about this movie?
Well, it's only like about one little portion of
They
the
gave I said this on Twitter recently, but they gave everyone a warning and they told them, listen, we don't have the resources to help everybody, to save everybody. What we've done as a result is set up these shelters that everybody can come to stay safe from the storm. They gave evacuation warnings repeatedly, and people stayed with their homes. And then people called and wanted to be saved and wanted to be rescued. And they told those people no. And the people were like, damn, you told us to evacuate. And I know you said you wouldn't come, but you really not going to come? And I'm like, no, motherfucker. They told you to fucking leave. And she's like, that's wrong.
No.
Go ahead.
No, I just feel like they have a responsibility to come in these situations. Listen, you can't blame these people for wanting to stay with their homes. This is their land. This is their property.
I'm not saying that I blame them, but I'm saying...
And I know for a lot of Pacific Islanders in the islands, when the time's come to go, some of them are not going to want to go.
Listen, just to keep it simple, if I tell you, don't eat that, because it's toxic,
this is different.
And I'm not a doctor...
It's different.
Okay, I can't save you if you eat that shit. But this is what we pay
taxes for. So when situations like this happen...
And that's why they had shelters.
Okay.
That's why they had multiple shelters for people to go through.
Not everyone can make it to places like that for various reasons.
And I understand that, and I knew that would be a part of your argument as well. But if you guys want to see it for yourself, so you can have the debate... if you want to
weigh in on this debate...
we would love to know how you feel about this. We're always looking to know what you guys think and feel about our episodes and the things that we speak on. Because we're not just talking to ourselves. We share this information, not just because it's things we care about, but because we love our people in our community, and we do enjoy the input. So yeah, check out When the Levees Broke. And this is, I would say, a footnote in the beginning of our conversation on climate change, because it's something that we need to come back to, like a lot of topics. And you will probably get another episode out of us this week. And as always, thank you for being with us, family.
Thank you very much.
We love you. We hope everybody enjoyed.
We hope you enjoyed our daughters
week. Yeah, we hope you enjoyed our daughters as well.
Yes, it's been Te Reo Māori week here. So
Kia kaha whanu.
So yeah, if you're at home and
we hope you've had a chance to
incorporate Māori language into your homes.
Facts.
I know at work we've been doing it.
We just got a new book from a friend of ours who wrote a book about Te Reo Māori.
It's called Rugby 123.
And it's really good for your kids. So, thank you for coming to our Kareo. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. And we hope that you have had an awesome Te Reo Māori week.
Peace.
Fa.